And so as we dive into this message entitled Digital Dopamine, how iTech is transforming our minds, it's very important for us to understand that if we are utilizing digital technology today, in whatever form that is, whether it's a phone, which is actually not just a phone, it's a supercomputer that happens to have a phone in it, a phone, laptop, tablets, however we're getting on our computers at home, if we're engaged in the digital world, we're starting to have problems. And as we go through this particular message, and I'm going to share some things that are going to be very, very frustrating for you. I'm going to share some things that will no doubt challenge you, and I will also share some things that will astonish you. And you'll go through this process of being frustrated at what's going on, but by the time we leave here, hopefully you'll have some better idea of how to control these things so they don't control us. Amen? And I want to say from the outset, I'm not against digital technology. I have my iPhone, I have my Apple Watch, I have my iPad over there, and I have my Apple computer here. I'm a techie guy, and I've been an early adopter of technology even my whole life. I'm not against technology. I'm against technology when it's against us as God's people. Amen? Some of you are going to be tempted to immediately throw away your phones. That's not what this is about. If God leads you that way, let Him lead you, not Christian Berdahl. Amen? So tonight we're going to go into what I've entitled the new social isolation paradigm. That's kind of a mouthful. Basically what this means is we have a brand new way that young people and all of us human beings on this planet are starting to socialize, and what we don't realize is that it's an isolation program. Sounds kind of contraindicated. A social isolation paradigm. And as we go along, you're going to see the depth of this title, the new social isolation paradigm. We live in an age now where we are all connected all the time. Now more than ever, we are connecting through our smartphones, our tablets, our laptops, our home computers, using apps even on smart TVs now. Most of us just don't seem like we can turn it off. We don't know how to disconnect or power down anymore. It's just always on all the time. And it doesn't matter what age, because this is a problem from toddlers to someone that's in their 80s or 90s even. It's a problem for anyone that has a human brain. If you don't have a human brain, maybe it's not a problem for you. I'm not sure what to do with you, but we'll pray over you. But when you're out in public, especially at airports, where there's a concentration of people, it's incredible because everybody is looking down. This is the new posture. This is it all the time. In fact, it looks like an F, like Facebook, doesn't it? Interesting. Today, the average person checks their smartphone up to 150 times a day. That's the average. I know I don't, so that means someone's checking it even more. We tap, touch, and swipe over 2,600 times a day. That's the average user, with power users over 5,300 times a day. We certainly love our phones, and they have become an integrated part of our lives, so much so that when we're walking around in this world that we live in fact, in the airport, if you're not careful, you have to. I travel all the time, all over the world, and you have to keep your eyes up when you're walking in airports, because people will walk and they'll just stop right there, and you're like, oh, and they get a pileup of people, bam, 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 bam. It's incredible. We are just not even orienting with our environment anymore, because these have taken over. These have become our environment, and we're neglecting this environment, and we're putting ourselves even at risk. In fact, there's this latest health hazard of the digital age: distracted walking. That's actually a thing now. The increased use of cell phones is causing more and more accidents, especially in busy metropolitan areas. Not only while we're driving, causing more accidents, but now while we're walking. This problem is so common, the U.S. National Safety Council had to create a new category in its annual injury report. When you go outside and you hit the road, your eyes are glued to your mobile phone, your tablet. And what we now dub as pedestrians, not pedestrians, pedestrians are irresponsible, and it's causing problems. And in fact, public safety campaigns have been put all over certain cities saying, pay attention while walking. Your Facebook status update can wait. Seriously, they're actually even painting down on sidewalk corners now before you go across a crosswalk. It'll say, crosswalk, written there. Eyes up, all these different phrases because there's walking into traffic and getting hit by cars. So now there are moves to introduce fines for distracted walking. Is this the day we live in? And plans, listen to this, to lower the speed limits so motorists are less likely to hit the pedestrians. So let's everybody pay a penalty, if you will, because we can't just walk safely. Let's lower all the speed limits in the United States. There's actually a movement for this. In San Francisco, a safety guard positioned at the entrance into a parking garage said in 1 hour he tallied 70 pedestrians who never looked up, 5 of which he had to step in preventing them from colliding with cars. Maybe it'll come to this. I don't know. I'm not quite sure. We might have to resort to seeing eye persons just to get us around town safely, right? A New York advocacy group, Transportation Alternatives, they propose adopting roads for distracted walking, stating, quote, the policy issue is that we have to design streets for the way people actually behave, and behavior is changing. If you're looking at a phone when you're walking around, that shouldn't mean death. So we have to design forgiving streets. What? No. We have to learn to not let this take over our lives. We have to exercise some self-restraint. We have to set some boundaries and borders in place. Otherwise, redesigning every street in the world is not going to still solve the problem. Now, honestly, when I was looking into all of this data, this information, I found this to be kind of a funny thing. But over the years, it's actually proven to be a very serious thing. We have a major problem. College campuses are a mess. People are falling into fountains. They're stepping off of things like this. They don't even see the steps. They crack an eye socket. They're breaking arms. Just because they're walking around 100% beholden to whatever's on this thing. Let's start with the definition. We're going to look into social media now. Social media is the social interaction among people in which they create, share, or exchange information and ideas in virtual communities and networks. They are sites, for example, like Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram, Snapchat, and LinkedIn. Now, this is just a few of the big ones. There's actually more than 4,000 social media apps in the world today. The overall trend we're finding for social media use, it increases year over year, every single year since its introduction. And so does the amount of time the average user spends on it. Every year, people's usage is not going down, it's going up. It's not even platforming, it continues to increase. And so this begs the question, how much time are we actually spending on our devices, and even specifically in social media? If you don't have in your different phones, you can turn on your tracker there, and it'll tell you your screen time. It'll tell you what kind of apps you're actually on, how much time you've spent there. When I turned that on, I was absolutely astonished at how much time I actually was on these different apps. In any given day, if you just take a little bit of time, and you go into this app to that app to this app, before you know it, in a week's period of time, you can use a lot of hours up. And so turn on that tracking feature to find out what your screen time is. On the iPhone, I believe it is called screen time. I don't know what it is on the other phones out there, but turn it on and be aware of it. As a result of what I understand now, I limit myself to 15 minutes of social media time a day, if I even use that now. 15 minutes? I could never live with only that much. Well, I just want to encourage you. If that was your immediate thought, like, wow, that's really limiting, you probably have a challenge. So monitor yourself. Find out where this is biblical, because when I read in there and I say, Lord, am I even in the faith? Am I even of the faith? It is important to audit and to pray about these things and to see whether we are even part of this statistic of overuse. And then once you're aware, now you can make steps to modify. If you're unaware, you'll keep going on before you know it, you have some problems. And so I'm going to ask, these are all rhetorical questions right now. How much time do you spend on your device and on different apps, including social media, including the gaming, including whatever you might be doing? Did you know that nearly 40% of Americans spend more time socializing via the internet than in real life now? And it's approaching 50%. 40% spend more time on social media socializing than in real life with people. And that's not because of COVID. These are stats before COVID. Americans alone spend an average of 2.06 hours a day just on social media. 2 hours a day for the average user. I'm down to less than 15. That means somebody's doing 4 hours. That's how that works. Doesn't sound like much time. Well, what's 2 hours? But even less time to this is actually what the average family spends together on any given day in America, a mere 34 minutes. So if we have family members in our home that need our attention and our love and interaction with one another, we're spending 2 hours with all of them and only a half an hour with these. What's going on here? It's the new social isolation paradigm. Social media, by its nature, is an isolating. It's not a bringing together, it's an isolating media, and you'll see that as we go along. But let's put that 2 hours into perspective. Let's put that amount of time in perspective for a year. That is almost 32 8-hour days of labor. That's a month of labor, gone. And we're not talking about, basically what that is, that's the equivalency of a full-time job every year. An entire month is given to social media for the average user of just 2 hours. We're not talking about the average user that clocks in over 10 hours of screen time a day. I don't do that. Really? When you woke up, you got on this. Then when you went to work, you got on this. And then when you got home, you went on this. And then before you went to bed, you either went on this or you went on your tablet. They have taken over. Unfortunately, the devil has used what I believe God can use to actually win souls. I believe the internet, I believe social media, all of that can be used as powerful tools for God and even for the gospel's sake. But the devil knows how powerful it is, and he is not leaving it alone. You see, God wants us to use different tools to spread the gospel, yes? As long as it doesn't violate known truth and revealed truth. But he will never force us. He would not want us to use a medium that would hypnotize the viewer, for example, or the consumer. For example, when I make a media project, a video project even, I'm going to be working on a short film in the next year or so, I will not edit that rapidly, and I will not put certain kinds of music to it because it would impact the frontal lobe and not cause that person to process properly. So I can still put together a short film with wisdom to where it could be a blessing, right? Social media can be used in a way that it is a blessing. It can be used in a way that it absolutely is not a blessing. So we have to be careful even how we want to share the gospel with all this new media today. I think about that 2 hours a day. If we have enough time in our day to be on just social media for 2 hours a day on average, what if we actually took one of those hours and just spent a thoughtful hour in the contemplation of Christ's life, especially the closing events of his life? You know, we're encouraged to do that by Sister White. And friends, if we can be on this for this many hours, there's no excuse why we can't be in the Word of God and the Spirit of prophecy for at least the amount of time that we're spending on this. Amen? I just don't have time. And when you start evaluating and seeing how much time we're actually, many times, wasting, and we're sad that we're not so vitally connected, well, we've allowed the connection to get severed, my friends. And we've become distracted again. Imagine what we could do with that 2 hours, with that one full month a year that we're just tossing off watching cat videos or someone making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I don't know why people do that. You're watching this guy make a sandwich in his kitchen that needs to be cleaned. I'm like, we really, really have a lot of free time we could use for the gospel. Amen? We could use to build churches. We could use to build homes and families and to minister to the suffering and the poor. What if we just literally looked at our time? Any good business person is always looking for return on their investment. And I used to own 3 of my own companies when I was younger, and we're always looking into this. We should look into our own life right now and the things that we're engaging in and say, is this giving me the return that God approves of? Amen? Yeah. Am I wasting, have I just spent that time, or can I invest that time into my community, into my family, into my relationship with Jesus Christ? Amen? Praise the Lord. Social media's explosion around the world reveals that we as a human family, we realize that we have this need to be socially connected with each other and grow our community. In fact, this need has driven over 2.7 billion people just to Facebook Incorporated. Almost 3 billion people using apps from one company. What's interesting is these mega tech companies never, ever promised us relationships and community on social media. They never promised that. We have used it in ways that the people that built all of this never realized we would use it. What we did is we got lazy with our relationships. Because now I don't have to drive across town to go see you. I'll just text little text. Hey, what's up? Not much. How you doing? Fine. Cool. Checking in. Right? Is that communion with one another? No, that's just touch point engagement. Is it meaningful? No, not really. And so we're missing out. In her book, Being Alone Together, Dr. Sherry Turkle, who is a psychologist, a professor, and runs the Science, Technology, and Society program at MIT. She says this: being, quote, alone together, think about that. We're alone together. I wonder what could be drawing our focus from each other when we're in the same room, alone together, is setting ourselves up for trouble. Getting used to being alone together, where we are designing technologies that will give us the illusion of companionship without the demands of friendship. You see, friendships are kind of messy sometimes. But when you get through that mess and that struggle that you have with that friend, it builds the friendship closer, right? When you get through those troubling things, it can grow you closer to one another, and you bear each other's burdens. But the problem is with the social media that we have, that's through this digital media, we are actually thinking we're having the companionship, but it's only an illusion because we don't have the demands of friendship. Human relationships are rich and messy and demanding, and we can clean them up with technology. That doesn't mean we're cleaning them up, fixing the relationships. It means we're taking away the very thing that makes a relationship what it is. We shortchange ourselves, and over time, we forget this and we stop caring. And that's what happens when we're no longer face to face and we're just seeing texting or a picture representation or some text of that person. It starts to alienate us a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And yet we've given ourselves the illusion that we're still having this great relationship. The intention with social media was never to replace face-to-face communion with each other. But that's what's happening at a frightening rate, and is causing a bunch of concerns. Mark Zuckerberg, the founder, the inventor of Facebook, said this: the goal when we went into it was not to make an online community. What? But that's what everybody wants it to be. To say, no. The goal was not to make an online community, but a mirror for the real community that existed in real life. The founders didn't want this to replace real life. Did you know that there are people now that have met on the internet through social media programs or dating, and dating program or dating app is a social media app. They meet on these apps, they date on these apps or through social media or through their phones. They have gotten married online, and they do not even live together, but they're together. That's weird. That's weird. That flies in the face of what marriage is all about. A godly institution, amen? The goal was not to make an online community. Professor Marshall McLuhan, who coined the famous adage, "the medium is the message," his thoughts hit right on target regarding social media. He says, the medium is the message, meaning in the long run, a medium's content matters less than the medium itself in influencing how we think and how we act. So, a popular medium, it molds how we see and what we see. Is what we see on here being curated for us? Yes. Completely. In fact, you're going to see as we go on tomorrow, when you're going to start getting really frustrated and mad at these different companies and what the U.S. government has allowed these companies to do, you will be astonished when you learn that everything in your experience online, even your search, when you're on a search engine and what you type in, the results coming back to you are not the same ones that your friend sitting next to you that's going to get. You can both sit this and try this at home if you're friends or whatever, and maybe even sometimes through spouses if you're different enough and you use your own search engines. You can sit down, type in the exact same criteria, and you will get a different load of the results. Did you know that? Do you know why that is? I'll give you a little hint of what we're going to talk about tomorrow. From the moment you went online the first time, a digital version of you was started. The birth of your digital avatar. It started. From that point on, these companies, when they first started, like I got on the internet before the internet was a thing, frankly, and before it was this kind of clumsy thing. Now, you can have anything by typing it in. In fact, it's almost like it predicts what you want. Oh, it does. Why? Because your artificial intelligence version of yourself lives on a server on the internet. It knows you better than you know you. And I'm not kidding. That is not an overstatement. This is disturbing to the deepest level. And I guarantee you, in the last days, it's going to be used against God's people. Oh, yeah. It's far too much information, far too much on every single one of us for the devil not to use it. Everything you've ever looked at or will look at is on a server. Oh no, I use special kind of, I go on there and I go private surfing. So your wife or your spouse can't see it. That's it though. Everything you've ever been on, it's going to come back and it's going to bite you. You better repent and stop it now. Too straight, brother? No? All right, good. Because friends, be sure your sins will find you out, right? It's true. And imagine what the devil has on you already. But you can say, praise the Lord. After I learned from God's people, I stopped doing that and God gave me the victory. And from then on, I had victory and success. Amen? That's how it works as a Christian. Everything we've ever done. And as we look into it tomorrow, I'm going to give you all those details. But a popular medium, it molds not just what we see, but how we see it. And if you think this last election that we had, the presidential election, was something that was fair, no. There's absolute concrete evidence that the American psyche was being moved by a leftist elitist group. And it made the country lean that way. It's proof now. This is not conjecture. It's been found out. The scientists have the data. It was rigged. And I'm not getting political. I'm just saying that's the power of what we're talking about. You can put a king in. You can take a king down. I thought only God could do that. It just happened. God allowed it, but it just happened. 1 in 3 Americans say they're more likely to meet someone new online than in the real world now. We're not even just meeting people anymore. In fact, here's one of the craziest things. We walk around like this all the time, and guess what's all around us? People. They're easy to meet. But all of them are doing this too. What are they trying to do? Connect with somebody. They're trying to meet with somebody. They're swiping, or they're not even looking up. There might be someone right there that God's put in their pathway. If they're not through here, then I don't know. How do I vet them? How do I know who they are? How do you know who they are? You get to know them, right? So 1 in 3 Americans now meet somebody online before they do in real life. Because we're so distracted from real life. It's scary to me. So the medium itself can change the way that we navigate our day. And it is. An example of this is when a friend of ours, of Kobe and mine, she decided, I need to take a break from Facebook. And we said, well, that's a good idea. Why? What's led you to take this break? She realized that she was thinking more in status updates and whether she would do something with her children or not, whether it would be a good post. I've seen with my own eyes a lady come to the swimming pool with her daughter, all cutified. And they brought all the stuff, and that mom was walking and had the bags going, and she's walking, and she's in high heels at a pool, walking in, and she's setting this whole thing up, taking pictures of her little girl going, puts her carefully in an inner tube in the pool so as to not mess up her makeup on the little girl and the hair and everything. Take all the photos. Okay, come on, let's go, honey. That was the pool day. It looked great on social media, no doubt. But it wasn't a pool day. It was contrived. And we're going to look at why this happens. Why are we posting these things? Why are we faking so much stuff? It's all part of, I think, a master plan. And our friend, she was structuring all of her thoughts and even her activities through the medium, the social media medium, because Facebook was in her mind. In fact, you could look at their life even, and you would see that, oh, he serves the Lord, and she's a stay-at-home mommy, and they're homeschooling the kids, and she's making good vegan food, and live in the country. Oh, ding, 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 all this great stuff, right? But friends, here was the reality. They're on the verge of divorce. He had major pornography issues. She couldn't handle it anymore. And 2 of the kids are struggling with major mental health issues. Not even close to reality. What's that? We're going to look into it. And she's not alone, our dear friend. This is a very common experience today for a lot of different people. Now if you are about 30 years of age or older, we are called digital immigrants, by the way. And so the thinking for those of us that lived more in the analog age, before this whole digital device and the explosion of it, we lived in that analog age, and we really had more in touch with the analog world around us and how to build relationships with people and how to have communion one with another. And that was something that we were all raised with. And that's normally how, for the last thousands and thousands of years, human beings have been socialized. We take those social cues, we learn, we grow, and we have this foundation in how to communicate with one another. Though we are digital immigrants, we have migrated into this new digital world. So we still have, the older generation, one foot in the tangible and one foot, if you will, in the digital. Meaning we grew up in the analog age before the widespread of digital technology, and we migrated our life into it. We haven't fully converted, if you will. Some have. Yeah, some have filled out their digital immigration papers, and they're definitely full on in it. But most of us still have a foot, maybe pinky toe left in the real world. And community, and communication is still healthy for us. It's not so with the digital natives. The digital natives are those that are born into or brought up during the age of digital technology, and therefore they are familiar with the computers and with the devices and the internet from an early age, and this is just normal life to them. So we are the digital immigrants, which we're dying off, right? And then there's the digital natives. They don't know a world, unless we've been very careful parents, they don't know a world without social media, without this kind of interaction. And unfortunately, for many young people, this is socializing. Never on the planet's history has that been a thing. Socialization has always been this, face to face. But now what happens when you can't even keep your young person away from little Johnny down the street that's a little terror, but we let them hang out with 1,000 Johnnies. Light bulbs just went on. They never needed their thinking shifted. They're just raised with it. This is what it looks like for our kids today. This is where, raised in good Christian homes, conservative Christian homes, whatever label you want to put on it, it's everywhere. 2/3 of teens would rather chat online with their friends than converse with their friends in person. That's 66% would rather hang out with their friends online and not even pay face-to-face. The medium is changing what we define as being socialized or having social structure. Dr. Turkle said over and over, she hears people say, I'd rather text than talk. And then she says, people can get used to being shortchanged out of real conversation. This is out of her book. So get so used to getting by with less that they can become almost willing to dispense with real live people altogether. And that happens. Whether you're young or old, I've seen young people and teenagers holed up in their bedrooms, not even coming out. They didn't want to socialize with mom and dad or brother, sister, anybody. They're just in their rooms. I've seen old people do the same thing. It's not just a young person thing. But I believe they're both looking for something. They're both looking for true communion and companionship and real community. And they're both missing out. We're in each other's presence. Look at that picture. But we're disconnected from each other, and this is now normal. This is social life now. The digital natives know nothing different unless we've carefully trained them up in a way a child should go. So when he grows old, he won't depart from the Lord, right? Many have never developed the necessary interpersonal communication skills needed to engage their peers. This is how they don't know how to say, they'll walk up and go, hi, how you doing? They're very socially awkward. Very socially awkward. Where kids before, they get, hey, what's up? Yeah, come on, let's go. Now they're like, hi, hello, almost like robotic. It's kind of strange. Because it's so odd to them. You see, even though I went to public school, one thing I liked about it is that they had structure and they gave us recesses to where you could go out. And the recesses were just as important as the academics that we were being taught in the class. Because that's where you learn to socialize. What is okay? What isn't okay? No, you can't throw the ball at his face. No, you throw it over here. No, you know what I mean? To where you learn what, and now we don't have it. You go to the schools now, when it's time for recess, all these kids are on their own phones that cost $1,000. It doesn't even matter what socioeconomic class you're in, because they'll give you the laptops. They'll give you... I wonder why they would give you all of this. I wonder if it's because it's going to create a customer for life. Now, it's the most natural thing to be online, even in the presence of others. And then it's like this. Every once in a while you go, oh, look at this, look at this. And then you go back over here. Like, it would be so weird if I showed up here and I said, hey, I'm so glad got here. It was a crazy day of travel, but I got here. Praise the Lord. What? You do this in your own home. Right? It's what's going on. There's an artist. I'm going to go and get permission. Hopefully he'll give me permission. An artist that has gone around and taken photos of all these people doing all these things. Like even a couple, for example, laying with their backs toward each other in their bed, and they're going like this. But what he did was, he took the phones out. And you have the photo and you're going, what are they doing? Or they're all standing there in line like these other images that we've seen. Like for example, this image Imagine that. If you took the phones out of their hands, you'd be thinking, what are they doing? They're not together. They're not even engaging with each other. They're not even looking at each other. That's the point. We're together, but we're not together. It's social media, but it's not socializing. Making sense? Sadly, many of these digital natives don't even know that they're missing out on real face-to-face communion today, because this is how you have communion today. They don't have anything to compare it to like we digital natives do. For those of us who know better, that there is a better form of socialization and learning these skills, it's up to us then to provide those consistent, healthy, real interactions that will fill the social void in all of us, especially our young people. There should be youth group activities. There should be youth outreach. There should be activities to go out and climb and hike and whatever. Get out and do something with your young people. Teach them how to be with each other face to face. Amen? And don't be tempted to think that this is just a young person problem. Like I said, no. This is a problem for everybody. This is dinner now. We're just all on our devices when we should be just having some great... How was your day, sweetheart? What struggles and what victories did you have? You see, what we actually desire is meaningful interpersonal communication. It's what we need. It's what we crave to be joy-filled human beings. We all want to be connected, communicating and communing with one another. We want to understand and be understood. God even wants to be understood. Parents and spouses, children, friends, all want to be connected and understood. And if we're not careful, we're robbing the latest generations of this experience. Neighbors, co-workers, church members, even God Himself desires for us to understand Him and choose to commune with Him. And He longs to commune with us. Effective, meaningful communication is quite complex, though. Looking into the eyes of that person that we're communicating with and reading their body language and watching their facial expressions, listening to the intonations in their voice, and then putting it all together with what is actually being said, hoping that we can comprehend what they're trying to communicate with the Holy Spirit to guide and lead our mind. And this is real communion. It's much deeper than just mere connection. Mere social media connection. We just cannot find this type of healthy communion on our screens. Continuing in her book, Alone Together, Dr. Turkle writes, when technology engineers intimacy, in other words, this is what intimacy is now, relationships can be reduced to mere connections. And then easy connection becomes redefined as intimacy. Did you catch that? In other words, if we redefine what intimacy is, then easy connection becomes intimacy. Friends, easy connection on the internet is not real intimacy. I was talking with a friend of mine on the phone driving here today, and he's having major problems with his family and his children and just deplorable things that are going on. And I wanted to be in the same room with him, because I wanted to grab his hand. I wanted to put my arm around his shoulder. I wanted to cry with him. And if I was texting, he would have gotten none of that. We were at least on the phone, which is better, right? You can hear the intonation of the voice. You can hear him when I'm okay, it really doesn't mean I'm okay. The Bible says in 2 Corinthians 3:18, but we all, with open face beholding as in a glass the glory of the Lord, are changed into the same image from glory to glory, even as by the Spirit of the Lord. This teaches us a principle, that by beholding we are changed. And our young people are beholding us and their peers. This is social engagement. And by beholding everyone else doing this, they are changed and even the digital immigrants are changed, and now this is socializing. We are changed by what we behold, and even the medium by which we behold it with and through. The medium itself is actually changing our thinking and our way of interacting with one another. Effective communication has always been a necessary component of strong interpersonal relationships. But for human beings, it's proven to be a struggle for us, even face-to-face. But it's terrifically more difficult online. Dr. Albert Mehrabian, Professor Emeritus of Psychology at UCLA, widely known for his publications on the relative importance of verbal and nonverbal messages through his studies, found that 7% of any message is conveyed through the words, 38% through certain vocal elements, 55% through nonverbal elements, facial expressions, gestures, and posture. So what that means is that 93% of communication is nonverbal, or it's not the words. Did you realize that? Here, let's do a little experiment. If you've seen my distraction, let me you've seen this before. But here, ready? I love Jesus. What do you think about that? I love Jesus. Amen? He's full of it. What? What's it mean? I love Jesus. Read me. Is this thing on? Check 1, 2, check 1, 2. Do you believe me? I love Jesus. Why do you believe me? The smile, facial expressions, yes. The gesture, yep, that's right. The way I said it, I love Jesus. I am resolute. I love Jesus. Yep. So the words are important, but the way that I convey the words is actually way more important, right? Why? Because I could say the same 3 words, I love Jesus. Whatever. Do you believe me? No. Why? I said I love Jesus. Because the 93% of communication overrode the 7% of what I said. Could I get some water by chance? So when we are communicating on this device and we are texting somebody, what are we throwing out? What percentage are we approximately throwing out of effective communication? 7%. Got to flip it. Thank you, brother. We are throwing out the 93%. If I'm just sending a text to somebody, I'm only giving them the words. So when I send a text, have you ever sent a text and been misunderstood? Well, why? Because we've done away with 93% of the communication process. That makes sense. In an attempt to put some sort of body language and intonation to our lifeless texts, emojis or emoticons were created. That's why these were created. To give some sort of context to what we're saying. I'm going to put a sad face here because I'm saying this in a sad way. Or I'm going to say something and I'm going to go, just kidding, right? Or whatever those are. So the emojis or these emoticons, the emotioncons, they're conveying the emotion of what we're trying to say if you know how to use them well. Some people, you're even more confused when they send them. You're like, what? You know? So these emojis are an attempt to help us add some expression, some context to those lifeless texts. There are inherent dangers with this limited type of communication, which our youngest generation prefers because this is just normal life. But what does it mean when someone texts you in all caps? Are they shouting, or are they angry, or are they happy shouting? Well, maybe we can try to figure that out. I'm not quite sure. What about when you type out a decent length text, which apparently is a cardinal sin in this generation, but you type out this whole thing and they reply, okay. If I told you and sat here with you and had this conversation with you and your reply to me was like, okay. In real life, we wouldn't even do that. But we're even getting, this is crazy, we're even getting lazy in our communication on the devices. I don't even want to give you a full reply. I don't even want to type out, okay. Not even, what's up, sup. Sup, y'all. I mean, like, we're even getting so lazy even in the lifeless communication that we have. What do you think's going to happen? We're going to be divided and the devil will conquer. That's what this is all about. Thinking that we don't need each other. We have a text coming up where God says, don't you dare forsake the gathering of yourselves together, especially when you see the end times coming. So you send that text and you send it off. And what do you do when you send the text? Is that what you do? No, you don't do that. What do? You wait for what? The bubbles to appear. Oh, they're replying. Oh, neurotransmitters and different things start to light up in your brain, which we're going to go over tomorrow. What? The bubbles went away. How rude. And we've come to these conclusions. And literally, if someone's not responding to your text, you'll actually get a little dejected. You'll be like, oh, really? You got something more important in your life than answering my text? And all this self-talk. And while it sounds almost silly, it's what's happening. It is causing us to have all these, I sent you a text an hour ago, how come you replied? My grandmother's in the hospital almost dead. Oh, okay. I didn't know that. I know. I saw your text. I realized you were just saying, sup, and it didn't matter at that moment, right? But what is this feeding? This is feeding an immediate gratification loop in our DNA. I want it, and I want it now, and I want it, and I want it now. And if I can't have it now, and everything is now. And when you hear that sanctification is the process of a lifetime, it just might wear you out. Forget this, I'm not doing this. Hello? Miscommunications are commonplace when it comes to messaging. And frankly, as a digital immigrant, to try to keep up with all the LOLs, the BRBs, the ROFLs, and all these abbreviations, they're here today, they're gone tomorrow. You can't say that anymore, Dad. You can't do it. I don't care. What is all this? But it can be as light and embarrassing as something like this. Your grandma just died, LOL. Mom, how is that funny? What are you talking about? It's not, this is serious. Mom, LOL means laugh out loud. Oh my gosh, I thought it meant lots of love. I sent that to everyone. And while that's kind of funny, and that stuff does happen, again, it's a communication medium that we're not all used to, and it causes some of those challenges. But what this limited type of communication fails, when it fails altogether, when I'm fine doesn't really mean I'm fine, and we don't have enough information and intonations and body language to listen to know she's not okay, we can have problems. Sharon Celine exchanged text messages with her daughter who was in college, and they chatted back and forth, mom asking how things were going, the daughter answering, oh, positive statements followed by little emoticons. I'm fine, school is good, I love you, everything's good. And all of her posts on her social media was reflecting everything is great. Later that night, she attempted to kill herself. In the days that followed, Thankfully, she didn't die. In the days that followed, investigation was done. What happened here? What's going on? Why did she try to take her life? It came to light that she had been holed up in her room. She had not been going to classes. She was having severe depression, and she was, no one was the wiser. Why? Nobody was in the room with her. And we can put on any facade we want. When I'm fine doesn't mean I'm fine. But if mom had been on the phone with her, she would have said, "Hi, sweetheart." And the daughter would have said, "Hi, Mom." What would be the next words mom would say? "What's wrong, sweetheart?" Because mamas know. Daddies that are connected know. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" "Oh, I'm fine." "Really? What's going on? You can talk to me." That's real. Even with this device, but using a different part of it called the phone. Why? We just introduced about 38% to that 7. And that helps mom to know something's wrong. Mom would have called someone, got a friend over there with her, she would have hopped on a plane and met her daughter, if need be. Amen? But when I'm fine doesn't mean I'm fine. You can't figure it out if we're limited in this kind of communication. And this is where social media gets very dicey. So this presents that unprecedented paradox that I'm talking about. It's the new social isolation paradigm. Even with mom and daughter texting and communicating with all the little emojis, those emojis were used to divert mom away from how I'm really feeling. And so we have to be careful that we don't just limit ourselves to this limiting experience. We need that connectedness with one another. The Bible puts it this way in Hebrews 10:25, "Not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as the manner of some is, but exhorting," that's strongly encouraging one another, "and so much the more as you see the day approaching of Jesus' return." So as we're going, look at this. Just here's the big snapshot. As we're going toward the end of time. Are we? Open your eyes. Yeah. And by the way, if you think your eyes are being opened by Fox or CNN, you're more deceived than you realize. Those are agenda-laden. And that was hard for me to swallow as a Fox viewer. But as we're running headlong into the end of time here, the time of the end, and we're in this, and the birth pains are starting, what Jesus says is, go hold yourself up in your own homes and don't communicate with one another except for through this. Is that what he says? Boy, you would think it, because that's what the church is doing now. No. He says, when you know these things are coming true, when you see it with strong encouragement, you need to press together. You need to not forsake the assembling together of yourself. That means face to face. Amen? So as we go closer and closer, we're going to have to press together. We're going to have to learn to socialize. We're going to have to learn to trust one another. If we don't have it now, we're not going to have it then. All of this plays into, I believe, the great controversy. All this plays into how the world will be controlled through social media. Friends, we just had a pandemic. The world was shut down, and social media drove the shutdown. And we were all too willing to give up anything and everything, all of our freedoms. Interestingly enough, the states that gave it up the most, like my own state, California, the most sickness. The states that didn't do all the mandates, the least. But the world went along with this. All this showed me was that the end time events will be rapid ones. Because they shut the world down like that. And we're still struggling years later just to kickstart it again. Why is the price of eggs $9 now in California? I mean, things are out of control. Why am I still paying $6 per gallon? I came here and I'm $3. I'm going to move here. Don't forsake the gathering together of yourselves. This scripture means so much more to me, has so much more depth of meaning to me, now knowing what I understand of what's going on socially. There's a reason God put this in there, because God saw the future and He knew there would be this new social isolation paradigm coming in to separate God's people from themselves and from each other. God knew it because He knows everything, amen? So now we go, okay, Hebrews 10:25. I will not forsake the gathering together. This is why we love the Sabbath, my friends. We don't go to church for an hour. We shouldn't anyway. We should have a Sabbath day together, amen? Where there should be activity, there should be Bible, there should be a walk, there should be things. Teach how to underline and highlight in your Bible. Where is all that? It's all gone. Because now we can barely get people to come to church. They'd rather sit in their house, watch online, than be in this room. That is forsaking the gathering together of ourselves. I'm not talking about the shut-ins. My wife is a shut-in now. I'm not talking about that. But I'm not a shut-in, and neither are you. Well, they're there, so I'm going to lay in bed right next to them all day, engaged in Sabbath lay activities. That's not the lay activity that Jesus wants. Amen? The latest studies have found with an increase of social media use, there is a correlated increase in anxiety, loneliness, depression, and suicide. According to the most recent statistics, loneliness is at now an epidemic level in the United States. In a health survey of 20,000 individuals aged 18 and over, almost half reported sometimes they felt or they always felt lonely. 47% said they felt left out, and nearly 50% do not have a meaningful in-person social interaction or conversation on a daily basis. So it is the new social isolation paradigm. I feel lonely, I feel left out, I don't have meaningful in-person relationship. Why do they feel that way? Because they're not having it. Amen? With 43% feeling isolated, the loneliest young adults between the ages of 18 and 22. This is what we call the golden years when it comes to the mind and mind development and wiring up, that hard wiring of that frontal lobe. The golden years between 8 and 25, actually, we find that this will set the character largely for the rest of the life. And so it's very important that we're not allowing all of these young people to just be so indoctrinated and drinking the digital Kool-Aid, if you will, to where they can't think on their own. And now the only thing they're wiring up is all the stuff on this. And this will make more sense when I mean wiring up. We're going to go into how the brain develops tomorrow. It's a fascinating study to me. But even when we can see each other on our screens, the feeling of being fully seen as we do face to face, it remains absent. This is why even when you talk to that person on the phone, it's not as great. When you're talking on the screens, it's way worse than not great. And now if we're just texting, it's even worse. And so even if we're communicating, we don't feel fully heard or fully seen, especially when a young person does not feel that way. It can lead to things as bad as suicidal ideations. Are you starting to see what I meant by this new social isolation paradigm? Think about it this way. If social media was enough for the human heart, then the very ones that utilize this program the most, by all accounts, you would think would be the most socially fulfilled. Think about that, right? If it was enough, those 10 hours a day, those hours and hours and hours a day, we would have no social issues in our country and around the world. But it's proving it's not enough, even though you put in copious amounts of hours. And there's a reason why. We'll get to that tomorrow. At first glance, these seem to be an easy way of connection, where we can share activities and we can share news and we can keep in touch with friends. And we have allowed that to actually replace the real communications and communion like we talked about. Dr. Graham Davy, professor of psychology at the University of Sussex, points out that new technologies are usually a mixture of both good and bad, and modern social media are no different. The problem we have is that we live now in the days of the selfie, the updates, the online status, the instant communication. This is what the platform is now. It is me, myself, and I, and everything that I am doing. Look how clever I am, how smart I am, how put together I am. Look at all the things that I am. Look at my thoughts. Look at this. Look at me. And that flies in the face of being a Christian. Because a Christian's life is about others. A lot of Christians don't know that. It's true. We're just not teaching that anymore. It's supposed to be a life of servanthood, which is a blessing. You are more blessed to give than receive. Now, I just want to receive. Me. I know. And you've been sold a lie. The devil's lie. Never before in this world's history has there been such an easy way to promote ourselves. I got a recent letter of rebuke from a brother and sister that said that I was allowing my fame, I didn't know I had that, but my fame to go before me, and that I was posting all this stuff about me, myself, and I. And I went, oh, I'm preaching against that. Really? Where would they get this idea? And so I looked, and I went back and I audited my last year of posts. And the last year of posts, there was over 200 and something posts, all spiritual. Spirit of prophecy or Bible. 250 something of them at the time. There were 5 posts, 2 about my wife and 3 about a place I was going to go speak. I don't think that's the definition of self-promotion that we're talking about here. They're off, obviously, but you know what I'm talking about. It is constant. It's constant. Everywhere we go. I mean, no matter, it's cool if you want to capture a moment. I was just in New Zealand for a month with my son, and we preached and went all over. It was a fantastic trip. Everywhere we went, there were people like going, so I'm standing here at this waterfall, and da-da-da-da, and I'm just so blessed and so lucky to be here, like, don't you wish you were me? And I was like, but that's what it's become. Self-promotion, promotion all the time. That flies in the face of being a Christian. It's not about us. It's about Jesus Christ. It's about God the Father. It's about those souls that need to learn something about Jesus. Most of us digital immigrants, we feel a little strange talking about ourselves like this. Digital natives, most normal thing ever. It's just what the natives do. You just post everything. You just shoot yourself in every environment doing whatever. Brushing my teeth. Who cares? But that's the problem. The problem is, this is an illustration of the problem. Our thinking is, someone's interested in me brushing my teeth. Oh no. Come soon, Lord, lest we all perish. We digital immigrants, we would feel odd just talking about ourselves, even in just normal conversation. You just wouldn't walk up and go, I have this great idea I want to tell you about. Hey, look how good I look today. Yeah, we just didn't do that. If someone did that, we go, well, that's kind of a pompous guy. That's an arrogant person, right? Today, it's all arrogancy almost. And unless we were asked about our lives, our opinions, we usually just didn't walk up engaged in constant self-promotion. And that's what the most normal thing it is now. It's not a healthy thing, but it's the normal thing now. We're not asked for this information. We just broadcast it out to the world. It is, we consistently send, premeditated, many times carefully curated information about the self that we want the world to see. We want all of our friends, haven't met most of them, but they're friends. I hate the fact that they're called friends. They should be called contacts. And then maybe you could elevate it to a friend status if there's going... Now, here's the problem with that, though. Everybody would feel left out if they weren't a friend. Right? Yeah, because if I haven't spent time with you, you're not a friend, you're an acquaintance. That's just life, people. Amen? If you want to be my friend, come hang out with me. I'll be your friend too, if I like you and you like me. This is how it works. No, everybody's a friend. I don't have 15,000 friends. I don't. I wouldn't even want that many friends. I have that many friends. And that's a lot to maintain. Real deep friendships. Yeah. And that's enough for me. Amen? But we sell ourselves, no, I've got thousands of friends. And they don't mean anything. We're selling ourselves, we're robbing ourselves. Because we're using almost sacred terms. Like a friend to me is sacred. And we're just throwing it around. Oh, if you just say, I want to be your friend, and who are you? I don't know. Okay, you're my friend. We've just thrown out the depth of what a friend actually is. And we're redefining it now through this medium. So the bias or the agenda of social media has become, to a large extent now, it's all about me. And so these technologies add a new dimension to the potential for loneliness and anxiety by offering us a way to directly quantify friendships, because we view the friendship networks of others for our comparison. So we look at all of their friends, and we look at my friends, and we look at what they're doing and what I'm doing, and now that's how we compare ourselves. It's keeping up with the Joneses 2.0. It's keeping up with the Kardashians. It's keeping up with everybody. Do you realize that's too much social pressure? Who did you have to keep up with, to use a term, when we were growing up? Your schoolmates, some of them, maybe your buddies down the street, whatever. Now we're trying to keep up with everybody. It's exhausting. So I just don't want to keep up with them all. You can compare yourself and your own popularity with that of your peers. And it's just easy to see how technology use can become a yardstick for one's self-worth. In a recent American Academy of Facial, Plastic, and Reconstructive surgery survey, 40% of plastic surgeons reported looking better in selfies on Instagram, Snapchat, and Facebook was now an incentive for getting plastic surgery. And this is among young 20s and teens. In 2018, 72% of plastic surgeons saw an increase in cosmetic surgery or injectables in patients under 30. Friends, under 30, you don't even have a wrinkle yet. But what do you want to do? You want to puff your lips up and get those cheeks out, and you want to morph yourself into a caricature of yourself. No, I'm just enhancing a little bit. For what purpose? For Jesus? Not even for your spouse. It's to look like this. We are chasing after this thing that is absolutely opposite of the love and character of Jesus Christ. As one young lady told an ABC anchor, I think we live in the generation where we evaluate our self-worth and value with literally a numerical value that's on a page. So yeah, we see who's getting likes, who's getting followers, and we assume that that's the right path. And that's what's happening everywhere. Dr. Tim Bono, author of When Likes Are Not Enough, explained this. When we derive a sense of worth based on how we are doing relative to others, we place our happiness in a variable that is completely beyond our control. Because, friends, what's funny today, you might get canceled for tomorrow. You might post something and you're not popular tomorrow. You were yesterday, but you're not tomorrow. Because popular opinion changes like the weather in Atlanta. As humans, we cannot help but being somewhat competitive. And we tend to judge ourselves by comparing our lives to other people's lives, which is not wise. Because as Christians, we have the privilege of finding our value in something far more tangible than likes. And His name is Jesus Christ. We find our value hid in Christ. We're so valuable, He died for us. Wow. She's really pretty. I love that hat. Oh, the clothes. Oh, that looks, I can't even dress like that. I'm so frumpy. I could never afford that anyway. I wonder, oh, look at that music. Oh, look at that. Is that worship? Is that what they're doing at their church? Man, I'd love to do that too. That looks so fun. But yeah, I listened to Christian's Distraction Dilemma. Now I can't go there anymore. No more fun for me. Wait a minute. Why are they all hanging out? Why didn't they ask me? I'm friends with all of them. They should have asked me. I thought we were all friends. My vacations are so lame compared to theirs. Must be nice to be in love, have the perfect mate, and have money too. I'm not as good a mother as she is. Man, I'm not creative like her. I'm not beautiful like her. Look at her skin. I mean, look how perfect it is. I'm just barely getting through my days. I'm not even getting the laundry done. Man, that guy looks great. Strong, fit. Yeah, I don't look like that. Come on, Christian, lose this gut you've got going on. What's wrong with you? You're such a loser. I wish my family was that spiritual. Must have been nice to be raised in a good Christian home. Oh, I wish my spouse and I would just spend time like that with each other. We barely even talk to each other anymore. Me on my phone, him playing his video games, always getting home too late for work. Another day gone, just ships passing in the light. In the night, my life stinks. And so go the hundreds and thousands of thoughts every day and every week that lead to dissatisfaction, increased loneliness, and relationship issues, depression, and even suicide if we're not careful. You want to know what's crazy? We are secretly coveting our neighbor's virtual life. That's the rub. That's the rub. Because their life is just as normal as yours is and mine is. Some of us travel a lot. Some of us do this or whatever. Some of us are brain surgeons. Some of us are this or that. Okay, they may have some unusual things, right? But most of us have a normal kind of life. You go, you do your work, you eat food, you fellowship with people, you go to sleep, you rinse and repeat, right? But what we're doing, listen, is we are comparing our humdrum behind-the-scenes life with their highlight reel. Hello? You know what a highlight reel is? A highlight reel is, for example, I don't watch sports and all that kind of stuff, but some people do. And let's say they're watching football. they will go back and do a highlight reel for the year for a certain team, for example. And it will be all the greatest accomplishments, the greatest defeats. It's this high, it's this low, it's this amazing thing. And you're like, that was an amazing year. That's their highlight reel. And what we're doing is we're comparing our humdrum normal life to their highlight reel, which half of it's not even real. What a deceptive process. No wonder our young people cannot add up. No wonder they feel less than all the time. You know, my kids were not raised in a home where we went on all these great vacations. We went camping, which was great. It was amazing. It wasn't Hawaii. It wasn't cruise ships. It wasn't Europe. I don't fault people for doing that. I just never had the means to do that. But if my kids were in the habit of comparing our vacations with all of their friends' vacations, they could be dissatisfied with what was a great vacation. You see what I'm saying? The highlight reel can mislead us to think, I'm really dissatisfied because all we ever did was go camping. Where before they'd be like, oh, I love camping. Deuteronomy is very clear that we are on very dangerous ground when we covet. And you shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or their Facebook feed, or their vacations, and you shall not desire your neighbor's house and his car, if it's a Tesla or whatever, in his field. You know, he's got a great house, or his male servants, or his female servants, or his ox, or his Harley, or his donkey, or anything that is your neighbor's. And that's what the whole thing is. Never, ever in the history of the world has it been so easy to covet. You ever thought about it like all this? I hadn't. Until I started dawning on me, wait a minute. We're just coveting all this stuff. Deuteronomy talks about coveting. God's like, we're going to put a program together, Christian. Because God knows how the emotions work for us humans. After all, He created us. And He knows by coveting and comparing, it creates emotional problems. Thank God that He loves us. 60% felt jealous of their peers on social media. Self-esteem comes from consolidating who you are. The more identities you have, all the different accounts on social media, and the more time you spend pretending to try to be someone that you aren't, the harder it is going to be to feel good about yourself, even in Christ. Because we are consistently consolidating from all these different areas, and we're creating who we are in a digital medium that has nothing to do with the real world. I'm just going to have to move along here. Actually, no. Dr. Twenge said, she did research, and what she did was a meta-analysis. What that is when you take a bunch of different studies, and here's the conclusion, and you take all those studies and you look at all of them and you come up with a conclusion or multiple conclusions based on what you read. Not just one study, well, yep, there you go, smoking tobacco is okay for you. No, right? You got to look at all the studies, and this is what a meta-analysis is. The most striking finding was the correlation between the cumulative time teenagers spent on smartphones and their depressive thoughts and suicidal actions. Twenge's research found that teens who spend 5 or more hours per day on their devices are 71% more likely to have one risk factor for suicide. Parents, be careful. You have young ones, 71% if they're on 5 hours or more a day. 71% increase. In other words, 7 times out of 10, they're going to have suicidal problems. At least one risk factor. And that, by the way, is regardless of the content consumed. That's if they're watching Brother Herbert preach or Christian Berdahl. It doesn't matter. it's too much screen time. And by the way, don't let us do all your Bible study for you. You got to get it firsthand from the Holy Spirit. Don't be satisfied with regurgitated spiritual food. Whether the teens were watching cat videos or looking at something more serious, the amount of screen time, not the specific content, went hand in hand with the higher instance of depression and suicidal ideation. She continues, all told, our analysis found that the generation of these teens, I call iGen, those born after 1995, is much more likely to experience mental health issues than their millennial predecessors. What happens so that so many more teens in such a short time would feel depressed, attempt suicide, and commit suicide? After scouring several large surveys for clues, I found that all of the possibilities trace back to a major change in teens' lives, and here's what they found: the sudden ascendance of the smartphone. That changed everything. Loneliness up, depression up, suicide up when those smartphones hit the market, and the young people were given them. If you look at this right here, this is what they found. Among teens who had spent 5 hours or more on their phones per day, 48% had suicide-related outcomes such as depression, thinking about suicide, making plans, suicide plans, or attempting suicide. Notice there on that chart that that solid black line going from the lower left to the upper right, that is screen time activities. And then if you look at the line going from the upper left down to the lower right, that's non-screen activities. So when there obviously is an increase in screen activity, there's a decrease in other activities. Obvious, right? But notice the dashed line, that right there are the depressive symptoms going through the roof. This is serious stuff. Because the pressures to even just have a phone. Oh, you don't have a phone? Okay, whatever. I mean, for the young people, just the pressures to have the device is through the roof now. That's what every young person, Mom, can I have a phone? I want a phone. Come on, why don't you let all my friends have a phone? Give me a phone. All the time, every day. Leave it alone. No, they want their injection too. Oh, I'm not overstating that. We're going to find out tomorrow that certain phone activities give you dopamine rewards consistent when equal with taking cocaine. Oh yeah, this is no joke. Tomorrow is going to bend your brain. It has been discovered that at least 25%, 1 in 4 posts on social media, is a flat-out lie, a white lie, or a lie of omission. So just 25% of everything out there, it's not true. Just right off the cuff. British digital marketing company Custard, in a recent survey, found that 75% admitted to lying about themselves on social media profiles. 75%! 43% of men polled admitted to fabricating facts on their posts. And by the way, this is on dating apps as well. 18% said that their Twitter and Facebook profiles accurately represented them. Only 18% said what is posted up there is real. Friends, 82% of what is up there is not even accurately picturing who we are. Oh, no. All right, we'll wrap it up here. Alone Together, Dr. Sherry Turkle. When part of your life is lived in a virtual places, it can be a computer game or a social networking site. A vexed relationship develops between what is true and what is true here. In other words, true in simulation. And they've noticed that there's a strange thing that happens. They call it seeping. It happens when we live more and more of our lives online instead of in the real. And what is real on social media becomes real in our real life minds. In fact, we will do things that we have never done before. There's people that have convinced themselves that they are experts in certain areas, and they go out to practice or do this thing and realize, I can't even do this in the real world. It's crazy what's happening to where there's this seeping that happens. In fact, there are true stories of young people who have done extraordinary things and injured themselves, jumping off 2-3-story buildings, because the young man said, I have another life. You get 3 lives in this game. That's real. That's real. And that's an illustration of the seeping that can happen, what becomes real. You spend so much time that you forget it isn't real, and it becomes your reality. I just don't have time to finish here, so let me look at the last couple here. There's a massive drop in empathy, a 40% decrease in empathy over the last 20 years on college campuses. Why? Because we are just not spending time with one another face to face. And if you're having a problem, I cannot even answer or even as my friend respond to you, because it's easy to just say, I don't have time, or act like I never saw it. But if someone called me and said, I'm having this problem, well, now I got to get engaged because friendships are kind of messy. And what they've seen is the more we separate from one another, our empathy goes through the floor. Do you think we need to be filled with empathy as God's people at the end of time? Yeah. So look at this. An entire world is being trained to be non-empathetic. An entire world is going to be set up with the mark of the beast. An entire world is going to be desocialized in the normal way of socialization, and they're in hyper gaming activities right here and right now. And these gaming activities are teaching these young people how to work as militant groups, how to use different kind of arms, how to flank, right flank, left flank, let's go this way, let's take over this, let's do this. They're being fully trained up. And friends, I believe 100% it's going to be used at the end of time. Because, friends, there's going to be a death decree, and eventually the government's going to say, go kill those Sabbath keepers. And now let's put the real things in their hands and say, go hunt them. There's no moral compass. There's no empathy. They're not socialized. We're just targets. Could that happen? Don't be naive. Maybe this Matthew 24:12 has a different thought in your mind now. The love of many shall wax cold. Chamath Palihapitiya, the former vice president of user growth at Facebook, said, many of us have grappled with the unintended consequences of the products we've built. Social media platforms in particular have been used and abused in ways that we, their architects, never imagined. We have created tools that have changed the fabric of how society works. And friends, we need to be different. We need to have 1 Corinthians 13, 4 and 5 in our lives. Because love is patient. You're not finding a lot of that online, are you? Love is kind. Where's the kindness in all of this? Love does not envy. It does not boast. Is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no records of wrong. Friends, let's reread that. Social media is patient. Is that right? No. Social media is impatient. Social media is love, is kind. Is it? It can be. Generally, it's not. Social media does not envy. Is that true? Social media does not boast. Yeah, right. Social media is not proud. Social media does not dishonor others. Social media is not self-seeking. It's not easily angered. And yes, of course, it keeps a record of all wrongs forever. You posted something 15 years ago, look out, someone's going to seek it out and they're going to cancel you. Oh, it's only happening on the upper echelons, you think, of like people that are personality. No. It's happening everywhere. Did you see what so-and-so said way back when? As though you can't have a change of thought. You know what I'm saying? Maybe you don't think that way anymore. It doesn't matter. There's no explanation. You said it. You need to apologize. And you need to grovel in front of the whole world because of this new social justice system that's here today and gone tomorrow. Do you see a problem? Have I clearly illustrated that there is this new social isolation paradigm in the world? Do you think it's a problem for Christians? Are you going to maybe make some changes? At least look at your activity levels. At least evaluate what might be going on with your children and children's lives. You see, I'm just Uncle Christian. I love you enough to tell you the truth. Amen? Here's what I promise. I promise I'll step on all 10 toes tomorrow. You know why I know that? Because this message stepped on all 10 of mine. But we need to be careful that we as Christians, especially Seventh-day Adventists near the end of time here, that our posts are not of impatience and being unkind and not envy and boastful and not proud, and it doesn't dishonor others, and it's not self-seeking, and we're not easily angered, and keeping a record of all these other people's wrongs. We need to be careful. If we're going to use this, we can show people we can do it a better way. So let us endeavor in our actions, whether it be in person or online, to use God's principles when engaging with others, whether it is digitally or in person. Amen? Let us be the hands and feet of Christ. Let us be the faces and taps of Christ, even online. Amen? Please consider what's been shared with you tonight. Pray about it. Let God move your mind wherever He needs to move it. Because God wants to train up these young people. God wants to have a generation ready for when He returns. You know, there's a famous saying where Ellen White says, "Get ready, get ready, get ready." Friends, dare I say, we're beyond the get ready. We better be ready. And we're only going to be ready if we don't allow this to hijack our minds. God bless you, and may your names remain in the book of life.